Hello everybody, this is the long-awaited gardening video. I've been talking a lot recently over on Twitter and Instagram about all the stuff that I'm excited to plant in my garden this year, or more accurately, my lawn, because my actual vegetable garden is a little bit on the back burner this year. I'm working more on the infrastructure and planting landscaping around the house. I've been really interested in the idea of getting rid of my lawn for years now, and I'm finally able to start working on that now that the major work on the outside of my house is done. I can plant things close to my house. So I have been inspired by a lot of reading I've done recently to start planting all the things and like getting ground cover in and such. So this is just showing you the basics of what I have started doing with cleaning up my garden, making my flower garden look nicer, and then getting some ground cover in. It'll be much more interesting to look at in like 3 months and 6 months down the line when a lot of these itty bitty baby plants are bigger. But anyway, for those of you who are interested, this is the garden tour. Hopefully I will be able to do another one of these later in the year. Since our drought is over, maybe it won't be quite as terrible to get outside come July and August. Also, sorry if the audio is at all weird in the bit that you're about to see. I had the presence of mind to use my external microphone so that it would pick up the sound better, but I had a really hard time speaking loudly because for a lot of the filming of this, there were dogs and children like 6 feet away from me who could hear everything that I was saying, and I was really self-conscious about it. But what can you do when your neighbors have 6 children and 3 dogs? I'm going to show you my front yard first. This is my oldest tree. It is a flowering white dogwood, which is a native tree in my area. And it is flowering this year. The petals are actually way more green than I thought. It doesn't look anything like what I remember the picture being when I bought it. I think it's a cosmos, but you know, it is a dogwood, that's what I wanted. And the leaves on it this year are much bigger and fuller. So I think, you know, this is the little tree that it's been here for 3 years. I planted it in the middle of the drought and it survived when all my other dogwoods didn't. If you might remember my very last video on my garden, I had planted 2 other dogwoods and both of them died. I had another white one on the other side of the walk, and then where this tree is now, I had a pink dogwood. And if you hear the children crying, that's inside my neighbor's house right there. They can probably see me. So this really pretty tree is a prairie fire crabapple, and it is doing really well. It has already bloomed, and I bought this because my parents have one that is quite well established, and I saw it blooming this year and was like, oh my god, it's so gorgeous. So I gave up my dogwood dream to have a crabapple, which isn't quite as sensitive or delicate, let's say. And this is the hedge that I planted last year. These are all Korean lilacs. Right now they're about 2-3 feet tall. They've definitely gotten bigger this year. They were considerably smaller when I planted them. And they will eventually fill in to form a complete barrier. This little one in the middle with the blue tape at the base is the one that got crushed by children, and about 2/3 of it died, but part of it is still alive, so I have my fingers crossed. And I think I have 6 plants. I have 6 bushes here, and this one, which is the one right by the house, needs to be taken out. That's because I need an access path here to get to my air conditioner, and you can see the other end is blocked up with a fence, so I put myself in a bit of a bind here. So this is my front flower garden. I don't know if I've ever actually shown this flower garden before. I never really showed anything in the front yard in previous years, but it is looking so good this year. So I have 2 clumps of chive here. Oops. And chive is completely edible, including the flowers, but I'm not going to eat this right now. I love hostas, and they do really well here. This little garden is the one that's original to the house. I've slightly expanded it, but everything I've added except for some of the hostas. So this and this big hosta, they used to all be one big one. There was this huge, very well established hosta right here by the side of the porch, and it got dug up when I had my porch replaced and my porch got a little bit bigger. So I had to split it, and it was like one is there, most of it's here, and this little one back there is a remainder. I think some of it died though, but it's looking just fantastic this year. Everything came back with a vengeance, probably because we've had such a good spring. This is a chameleon plant. It has just started to really grow. I planted it about a month ago. Just randomly picked it up at Lowe's, I think, because I was curious. It has really great leaves, and as you may be able to tell by the fact that I love hostas and this other stuff I'm about to show you, I like things that have beautiful foliage. I don't necessarily select things for flowers all the time. This thing here is the terrible rose bush that is original to this garden that I have tried to dig up more than once, and it keeps coming back. Don't get me wrong, I love roses. Roses are beautiful, and this is kind of an old-fashioned pretty rose, but it needs to be trellised. But they planted it right in front of a window, and I don't want it here. I really don't want it here, but it keeps coming back. This is a Bodhisattva head, and I got it this year. I saw it last year at the plant nursery, and I was like, oh my god, I need it. And they gave me a discount on it this year. On either side of it, I've planted these beautiful, deep pink coleus. These are annuals, and I usually don't care to plant annuals because I'm a lazy gardener. But I can never pass up coleus. And these two things are called coral bells. I don't remember which varieties I have. I have it written down somewhere, so I'll try to remember to put that on here. I have discovered coral bells this year. They're gorgeous. I was first attracted to the leaves. The foliage comes in many different colors, and I think they're just absolutely beautiful all year round. And they are in full bloom, and I have to say, I really like the way that the flowers look. They come up on these big shoots, so they are like really tall compared to the rest of the plant. And they're very pink. I think it comes in different colors, but I have two that are slightly different shades of pink. I think some may kind of be in lavender or white as well. My porch, this is some stuff I still need to plant. I've got a new hosta that I got out of the Botanical Gardens, and that is more ground cover. She'll go in later. This is my gigantic chive on the other side. This is, oh, hello dog. That's Ava. This is the garden that I put in myself. I squished all the grass 4 years ago, I think. But most everything here has been planted this year. So my big chive, this one needs to be divided. It's fallen over because it's got these flowers on it. Down here are some annual little yellow flowers. These are sundrops, I believe, and they're actually really pretty and doing pretty well here. I think they need to be in slightly more sun, but they're spreading slightly. These are my Asiatic lilies, which do stunningly well here. I used to have all these planted roughly where the chive is now, and then one year when I was remulching, I moved them because they were so stunted. And as you can see, they're not to the full height that Asiatic lilies can get, but they're like 3 times as high as they used to be. So these white ones, which are blooming now, are the ones I just planted this year. I want the full color palette, so I have white, and I can never remember. I think I have yellow and orange, and I still need to get red. Why can't I remember that? Anyway, the ones from the store always bloom really early the first year, and then they start to be more like that. And those will probably bloom in June. Yeah, you can see they're just beginning to come out. And this is where I want my new herb garden to be, but as I have discovered, it stays a bit too wet and shaded over here. It's just shaded enough by my neighbor's porch, I think, and herbs, especially things like rosemary and thyme, probably even sage, need better drained soil and a lot of sun. So I've got a lavender here. I've never successfully grown lavender before. Last time I did, I got a really, really tiny one and it just died on me. Like, it turned to this powder. So I think maybe it caught a disease. This is the extremely tiny remnant of my thyme plant. All of my thyme in my old garden in the back died over the winter, probably because it was really weakened by the drought. This is not going to survive. I think it's just too wet here. That is not an herb, those are pinks. Pinks? Yeah, pinks. Used to have another one, but it died during the drought as well, so this one, looking pretty nice. Little rosemary plant. Hopefully it doesn't get like root rot from the moisture. People say that rosemary can overwinter in my zone, which is zone 6-ish. I have personally never witnessed this, so I just expect to treat rosemary like an annual, so I'll probably move it to a slightly better location next year. And that little tiny thing is a sage. My other sage kind of reached the end of its life, so I'm trying to replace it, and I think this one might be a dwarf variety that I bought by accident. We'll see. And over here are 2 calla lilies. These are also new, and they're almost done blooming. This is the last one that's the right. It's not completely dead yet. I also love calla lilies, and this seems to be a really good place to put them. They seem to really like the moisture here. So, yay, I hope they overwinter. This little bushy thing is a euonymus. You can see the kind of brighter green. It's getting some new growth on it. I'm very happy. I'd never heard of a euonymus before, but I saw just the leaves at the store and was like, I need that. I want a bush to kind of anchor this curve right here, and I think this might be a good idea. In fact, if it does well here, I want to start working on a border along the pathway, and this might be an excellent low shrub to do that with. And yeah, like what I was saying about foliage before, I just love the way the leaves look. And another Korean lilac. This one is planted a little too close to the house, so it is under the eave, which means it's very shaded, but it's also very dry, and that is why large parts of it die every year. It's too big to move though, so I'm just hoping it slowly grows. And the last thing over here is my big Korean lilac. This has been here for 6-7 years, and in a stunning bout of intelligence, I planted it right next to the house, and it got cut away last year when they were re-siding my house, and I also planted it in front of the only external outlet on the house. Because I am so smart, guys, but it is so, so pretty. So now, let's go into the backyard. I don't know what the dog is staring at. What are you staring at, Eva? The squirrel. My neighbor on this side, he's the neighbor I pay to mow my lawn, they have a peanut feeder on their back porch for squirrels. So the top of their fence is a squirrel highway, just back and forth. I can see all these squirrels from my office window. Are you ready for this construction zone of horror? I really don't want to show you guys this. I was hoping to wait until I got it looking nicer, but it's been raining so much I didn't have time. So this is the reality of my garden. This patch right here is a great example of the problems I have with my garden paths, and that is what I'm trying to fix. I'm trying to use some no-mow lawn methods to fix my garden paths. So that's what I've been doing over here. So basically, I have 4 raised beds for my vegetable garden. They're 4 feet by 12 feet and about 1 foot high, and I've been putting them in every couple of years, working from the alley side towards the house. So this one is about 7 years old, and it is completely rotting apart, and that one I put in last year. So my garden paths are landscaping fabric, which is a plastic mesh covered in mulch. And that mulch, the wood chips, breaks down, and within a couple of weeks I get something that looks like this. So I'm extremely frustrated in the garden. About 90% of the time and labor I put into the garden is weeding, just yanking weeds out of landscaping fabric. And if you've ever done that, you know it's extremely hard to get roots out of a plastic mesh. I won't elaborate on this, but it's my biggest garden rant. I hate it. So what I am doing is I'm taking out these edging stones, then I am peeling back the landscaping fabric, which I need to clear off some of the stuff on top of it because it gets really heavy. And then I am left with bare ground, and I'm putting wood mulch over it again, and then planting ground cover. So these are all dead nettle, except for this. This is a creeping phlox. I kind of wanted something else to anchor this corner here. It's a good place to put a bush. I might put it here instead, but I've run out of large plants. Creeping thyme, creeping thyme. These, I'm really worried they're going to be too wet. I just was reading last night that creeping thyme might need less mulch, more sun. We'll see. This little corner by the compost heap, don't look at that. This is a Coreopsis. It is, oh, the really popular variety, I think. I don't think it says, like Morning Star or Morning Bloom, something like that. So some like little cute yellow flowers on there. I don't really know how big it gets. What did it say? Oh, about a foot high. So I probably needed something better here to hold back this mess, but we'll see. I'm also starting up this side. You can see I've peeled back fabric. These are bugleweed. This one is flowering, which is supposed to be a slightly walkable, slightly invasive ground cover. And it's planted over here rather than the dead nettle because I think it does better in shade, and it's quite well shaded by my neighbor's fence. The garden itself is a mess, and I'm actually not planning on doing too much growing of vegetables this year. This thing that's covered in the plastic fencing, this is a barrier against birds. If you can see way in there, that little tiny purple thing, I've got 4 patches of scarlet or purple kale planted in here. They're very tiny, and I'm having a problem with the seedlings I started kind of being killed by something toxic in the soil I had in my seed pots. So the fact that these are alive still when my peppers and tomatoes died, it gives me hope. These two are both garlic. One is a family variety, I think it's the shorter one, and one is German porcelain, which I think is this one. I always get them backwards, but the family variety is just white. The German porcelain has kind of a purple hue to the paper that surrounds the garlic bulb. This may be the best my garlic has ever looked. We will see how it harvests. Had problems with rotting in the past where the garlic didn't store very well. You may be wondering what the bags of soil are for. I'm going to be planting end caps at the end of each of these beds. I'm going to try putting marigolds and such right there to fill in so the weeds don't get there. But once again, I have to have more dry weather to get to that. These are my tomato beds. I have these gigantic trellises that are made from like a fine rebar mesh and steel piping. These are fantastic. They are slotted in over rebar stakes so I can lift them out and store them every year. So nice. Really, really lovely if you grow indeterminate tomatoes that just keep on growing. See what I mean about the squirrel highway up there? This is the first year that I have bought tomato plants because my seedlings died. So I'm growing 2 varieties that I don't care that much about, as what was available. So these are Best Boy. These are Early Girls or something like that. They're really popular. I think they might be semi-heirloom tomatoes, but they're eating tomatoes for like slicing. The big globe ones, I think. That's not what I prefer. I prefer to grow paste tomatoes. These two over here are Amish paste, which is the one variety that I did want to grow, but I won't have the really weird opalka this year. And what was the other one I was going to try to grow? Roma, I think, because I had leftover seeds. I kind of have a leftovers garden this year. I'm not really buying seed or buying plants unless I have to for tomatoes. Just trying to use things up. This bed, nothing in it. Nothing in that one either. This is spinach, and that is another purple kale. This area is my pea plot. I have this really nasty trellis, but I'm trying to get one more year's use out of the plastic fencing. So yeah, the peas are growing here. This side is doing pretty well. The other side, most of it didn't come up. It's flowering, so I might have peas soon. We'll see. I got them in a bit late, and so I'm not going to get nearly as many peas as I had last year. And this is my kind of new section, where I am planting bushes and stuff, trying to fill in this entire area, which is always bigger than I remember it being. So this is a little stand of, I think it's northern sea oats. It is a sea oats variety that I got some extra from my mom. It gets a little bit bigger every year. In my mom's house, it spreads very rapidly. It like takes over everything, but it's just staying in this nice little clump here. I have a slight erosion problem back here because of the new drainage, so I need to plant some like minglers here that help with that. The purpley blue flowers, these three and the little volunteer over there, these are spiderwort, which got from a friend via my mom, and they really like it here. They get cut down a couple of times per year when my neighbor mows, so I wanted them to get bigger. I put the protective cages around them. These reddish bushes, which I think are such a gorgeous color, these are barberry. They don't get very wide, but I think these get 4 or 5 feet tall. So hopefully they will add some visual interest over here. Did I get them mainly because they're red? Yes. They also have some thorns, which I didn't realize when I bought them, but I can live with that. And then these two little things over here. This one is flowering better so you can see it better. This is a sweet spire. This is the Henry Garnet's slightly dwarf variety, so I think they get like 4 or 5 feet tall and about 5 feet wide. I don't know how fast they grow though, so these are small, but they've both been doing pretty well. This one not quite as much, maybe because it's right by the house, but yep. We'll see how much they grow this year. And once again, I have a fence here to kind of protect them. And then let's come back over here on the other side of the driveway. These are what I just planted yesterday. This is a 9-bark. I think it is a summer wine 9-bark. It'll get about 3 or 4 feet tall. And it's not really blooming. I wish I could show you the blooms. I saw this, multiple types of this at the botanical gardens last weekend, and it was like a mystery plant. I could never find a decent label for it, so I identified it, and I have to have one. It is native to the area, and I need more native plants. And then these two little bushes that are blooming so nicely, these are Weigela, and kind of like the 9-bark, they're supposed to get about 4 feet wide, about 3 or 4 feet tall. And I have them planted here in the hopes that they will form kind of a privacy screen for my patio. Maybe. I might have to do some more fill-in, but we will see. This is another one that I decided to get after I saw a really established one at the botanical garden. I didn't know what a Weigela was. When I saw the grown version, I was like, that is so absolutely gorgeous, and this pink variety is stunning. And this is the old herb garden. Used to have the big sage plant here, but it reached the end of its life. This humongous mound is all oregano. I'm going to be using a lot of oregano in my landscaping, I think, because it just propagates itself endlessly. I have a little tiny basil plant over there. I'd also planted basil from seed, but absolutely none of it has come up. I think the birds really like to come over here. I put a prairie wildfire mix in this patch, and you can see some things coming up that are probably not weeds. That's probably from that mix, but I'm waiting to see if this is weed or if some of it is also flowers. These are the blackberry lilies. I've got two, and I think I've got a little tiny third one in there. I need to dig this up and move it. It keeps getting squashed by this grass, and yeah. I don't think they've flowered in a couple of years, to be honest. They just aren't doing super well here. But anyway, at least I can look at my oregano and say, that's beautiful. So that is the state of the garden right now. A bit of a mess. A lot of little plants that aren't mature yet. But in the coming years, this should make everything look a lot nicer. Especially when I get this stuff ripped up completely. And that is it. I don't think I filmed a proper outro while I was outside, so I'll tack this on at the end. That is the state of the garden as of Memorial Day weekend 2019. And I will be very excited to come back in like 3 months and show you how much it has changed. Hopefully I will have finished ripping up all of the paths in my garden in a couple of months. I plan on putting down more ground cover and also clover in the garden paths, so we'll see if that experiment worked out or not. But anyway, let me know how your gardening projects are going this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.